Most people don't talk about this feeling. They don't even have language for it. They just know something feels off. Not dramatic, not catastrophic, just this constant low-level sense that modern life is harder than it should be. That you're always a little behind, a little confused, a little unsure if you're doing things right. Even when you're responsible, even when you're paying your bills, even when on paper you're doing okay. I want you to think about the last time you felt this. Maybe it was opening an email that used way too many words to say very little. Or looking at a bill and thinking, I don't remember agreeing to this. Or standing in a store comparing options that all look the same but somehow cost very different amounts. And for just a moment, your brain froze. Not because you're unintelligent, but because you were overloaded. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Here's the thing most people do in that moment. They turn inward. They think, I should understand this. I should be better at this. Other adults seem to manage this just fine. So they blame themselves. But psychology tells us something important here. Confusion doesn't automatically create curiosity. It often creates shame. When people feel confused repeatedly, their brain doesn't say, let's analyze this more carefully. It says, let's get out of this situation as fast as possible. That's not a character flaw. That's a survival response. Let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, someone I know, smart, responsible, careful, called me completely stressed out about a subscription they couldn't cancel. They said, I swear I've clicked everything. I must be missing something obvious. But they weren't missing anything. The cancellation button was buried 3 menus deep, labeled in language that didn't match what the screen actually did. By the time they found it, they were exhausted. And that's the part we don't talk about enough. These systems don't rely on ignorance. They rely on fatigue. Modern life asks your brain to make more decisions in a single day than previous generations made in weeks. Not big decisions, tiny ones. Which app, which plan, which version, which checkbox, which optional add-on that isn't really optional. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. And once your brain is fatigued, it starts defaulting. It accepts what's pre-selected. It avoids friction. It chooses the path of least resistance. That's not laziness. That's how human cognition works. And once you know that, something unsettling becomes clear. Many systems are designed to show up right when your brain is least capable of resisting them. This is where people get uncomfortable, because we like to believe complexity is accidental, that things are just this way. But systems don't evolve randomly. They are shaped by incentives. If making something simpler reduces profit, simplicity tends to disappear. If adding steps increases compliance, steps get added. Not out of malice, out of math. We'll talk more about how that shows up in pricing and subscriptions later. Another quick story. I once watched someone stand in a store staring at 2 nearly identical products. Same size, same use, different prices. They weren't comparing features anymore. They were comparing themselves. Which one makes me look responsible? Which one would a smart person choose? Which one feels safer? That's not shopping. That's identity management. And psychology tells us that when choices are framed this way, people stop asking, "What do I need?" and start asking, "What does this say about me?" That shift is incredibly powerful and very profitable. Here's where the self-blame sneaks in. When people feel overwhelmed, they assume they're failing at adulthood. They say things like, "I'm just not good with money. I hate paperwork. I'm bad at this stuff." But research shows something different. People perform worse not when systems are hard, but when systems are unpredictable. When language is vague, when rules shift, when outcomes are unclear. That uncertainty keeps your brain in a constant state of low-level stress. And stressed brains don't analyze well. They comply. And this is why money feels emotional even when the numbers aren't that big. It's not just about the amount. It's about what uncertainty does to your nervous system. Your brain doesn't like open loops. So when something feels unclear, our brains rush toward closure. Click yes, accept the default, move on. And later, when the bill shows up or the regret sets in, the shame follows. I should have known better. But here's the reframe that matters. What if that feeling you've been carrying, that subtle sense of pressure, confusion, and self-doubt, isn't evidence that something is wrong with you? What if it's evidence that you're operating inside systems that were never designed to feel calm, transparent, or even humane? Because that realization changes everything. Once you see the design, the shame loosens. You stop saying, "I'm bad at this," and start saying, "Oh, this is one of those situations." You begin to pause instead of panic. You recognize when urgency is manufactured, when complexity is strategic, when confusion benefits someone other than you. That doesn't mean you suddenly the superheroine that can outsmart every system, because that's not the goal. The goal is awareness, because awareness restores choice. And here's the most important part. Understanding the design doesn't make you cynical. It makes you steadier. You stop internalizing pressure that was never meant to be personal. You stop measuring your worth by how well you navigate systems that were intentionally made difficult. You don't need to become an expert. You just need to stop blaming yourself. Because clarity is not about control. It's about orientation. Once you know where you are, you can decide how to move. And that, quietly, powerfully, is where real freedom begins. You're not crazy. It's designed that way. If this information makes you feel better and you want to learn more, please like, comment, subscribe. Auntie is here for you.